Here. All right, so we can get started. This is the weekly APM meeting. I think one of the main things we wanted to talk about today is the kind of 12.5 issues and the kickoff discussion. So Dove, if you want to drive that, or if you don't know if you want me to share.
Yeah, I'm sharing.
All right.
Yeah. So this is for the kickoff discussion for 12.5. I think we should like make it like something ordinary, that the weekly meeting for APM before the kickoff meeting should involve the kickoff discussion for that iteration. I think this is something that we need to put into the agenda. It will be like once in a month. I think it makes sense instead of having like a dedicated meeting for that. We should leverage this meeting. Thoughts or comments are more than welcome. I'm going to walk through the 12.5 issues. I'm going to skip the one that are to schedule because we discussed them on the previous meeting, and the security related one because this is being recorded. And of course, feel free to ask questions, comments, or provide additional explanations. So first issue is around investigation. As we want to enhance our metric use case, and we are using Prometheus, and Prometheus is not suitable to store metrics for long term. We do need to find a database that can store metrics. Now, ideally, if we'll be able to find a database that will store both logs and metrics, would be ideal.
What is Prometheus and Prometheus Cortex? In previous job, there was like Prometheus Cortex was
so there are
some kind of federation thing or something.
Yeah, so there are two. I won't say two, but there are like two popular projects that provide a scalable solution for Prometheus and provide long-term storage. So there is Thanos. This is one. And this is, by the way, I think I mentioned it here. If not, we can add. So Thanos is one. It's an open source project. I think we are using Thanos as well. Gitlab, the infrastructure team.
Yep.
And Cortex is almost similar, but it's a hosted solution for Prometheus. So it's a federate, high available Prometheus as a service. And this is in a nutshell. So the purpose of this investigation is to find a suitable database that can store metrics, can query the metrics can store the metrics from Prometheus. And while we query the data from Prometheus, Prometheus can go to that database, query this data, and forward it to us. There are several solutions that I'm aware of today, and I listed them here. Entry from Uber is a talk that I saw in KubeCon, where they actually discuss on this exact use case. So this is one approach we can take. So this is the investigation that I would like us to conduct. The second one is the infrastructure dashboard. And the idea here is we would like to introduce some sort of a birds of an eye visualization across your underlying infrastructure, basically across your pods, nodes, containers, that on top of them the workloads are running. We don't have a similar solution, and I don't think there is one for Grafana even. There are, however, many solutions that are being provided by other vendors, monitoring vendors, and I think I listed some. So in the Epic, I've listed some examples on how we would like it to look like. And so there is a suggestion sketch already in place. We will keep the dialogue in this issue. The next one is to deploy Elasticsearch as a managed app. This is the continuous effort from the previous iteration. After the successful POC, I think we are in the right place to see if we can already introduce in this iteration Elasticsearch as a managed app in a managed cluster. So this is to store logs, to visualize it within GitLab UI. We may end up, by the way, and this is an update that I will put in the issue. We may end up shipping it with Kibana, although I mentioned without Kibana, but maybe if we'll see that with Kibana we are getting more value, maybe in the first or second iteration we will enable Kibana for our users. Next one, this is a pretty old issue. I think is important, and this will allow our users to change, choose any panel on the chart, change and customize their dashboard and save it. Next one is also an investigation, but ideally I would like to make sure it will also be documented. We can even maybe publish a blog, maybe do a product walkthrough. We need to see how it goes. But basically, I want to simulate ourselves as a user that would like to monitor any type of application. Let's say he's deploying MongoDB, and the user would like to see the metrics on this. So what are the steps that you need to do? Let's make sure that they are documented. I foresee that this issue will expand, eventually create multiple issues. Eventually, this entire workflow would need to be curated and to have an ability to create a turnkey solution for our users by like a push of a button to be able to display any metric in GitLab UI. So this is the first step. This belongs to the Epic instrumentation.
Is this Kubernetes focused or not Kubernetes focused, or how?
Yeah, it's Kubernetes focused, and if it's not mentioned here, I will add this to the issue. Yeah, should be Kubernetes focused. Next one is the ability to load fake or taste data into an environment. This was an ask from one of our users, and I think it will also support some of the work that we are doing here internally. The next one is the telemetry information that I would like us to capture. There is a bigger epic about all the telemetries that we want, and I'll keep adding items into that. But for now, I've scoped it down to only those items. Okay, so this is an issue that was opened by Ruben. And I think basically, and there are several issues that are similar, and I think they're all related. I think that we have some problem about inconsistency on how we handle the backend calls. So we are receiving different error code, response code, and there are multiple issues that I think all of them are related. So there is a screenshot already, and I know that there is a discussion, an ongoing discussion with the team. This is one of the bugs that Kenny reported while he was doing the product walkthrough about the population of the systematic dashboard. Yeah, so it would be good to fix it. Add button to self-create, to create the self-monitoring project for the self-monitoring project. Okay, so this is an issue that's spanned across, I think, a couple of issues. So support alert on multiple metrics, and it's a part of like the bigger discussion that we had here, that there is here, and I know it is closed. And there is, I think, a related issue here.
Yeah, there's
So
a
that it's
related issue for creating alerts on computed metrics.
computed metrics, yeah.
Right, that
So
I have.
this is the one. So it's probably not the same, but it's related. I'm not sure if it's the same, but I suspect that those two are related. So I guess same person will work on both, but just to make sure we have both of them on site.
Um, just a short thing. I think the computed metrics issue is about allowing alerts on sort of like a combination of metrics, while the other one is just to allow alerts on the existing metrics.
So okay. But it says multiple metrics.
Oh, I wasn't talking about this issue. Okay, might be the same thing.
No, you're right, Ruben. They are different. Multiple metrics just means we can add multiple metrics that we're getting alerts for, and the computed one is just expanding the language we have to set up those alerts. So computed is like you see there, requests over capacity is greater than 95%, whereas multiple metrics means you could have requests over capacity is greater than 95%, requests over capacity is greater than 97%, requests over capacity. You could take the same thing and just alert at multiple different thresholds.
Multiple times. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. Right.
So multiple alerts on the same metric then.
Well, that, or I mean, it could be as simple as just saying, hey, alert when, capacity exceeds you don't have to do computed to do multiple.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, currently we have the ability to add one metric or add one alert to like a custom metric or whatever. And this is saying, let's add multiple metrics to each of those panels, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we need to provide some clarity. I think it listed here. So,
might be good to add a little more into the description. Yeah.
Description. When I was reading that, I think this is what I understood. So we talked about this one. Make logs basically makes logs available from the operation tab. And today we don't have an easy way to go into logs. User will need to go to environment and then click on the pod, and he see the logs. And now we want to first create a section for pod logs. And what we discussed in the last meeting is that those logs will be the one that will come from Elasticsearch. So we'll keep this flow for now, and we'll have another flow here from Elasticsearch. And then we'll need to think about how to either combine one or deprecate one. But for now, this is just a placeholder for the logs. So adding custom metrics for GitLab managed Prometheus scope. And I've also seen a couple of issues around inconsistent behavior when we have Prometheus at the instance level and how it affects the group and the project level. So apparently it is impossible to add custom metric to a managed Prometheus at a group level. And as I mentioned, is it listed here or maybe in the following one, the following issue, we'll see a similar behavior for alerts.
I think you can add them from the dashboard page, but not from the Prometheus service page, which doesn't exist for the group or the instance.
Really? Is that true? Because I think that's using the exact same interface. I'm
100% sure that you can add
them
from the dashboard page. There's an add metric at the top, and it's only available for
the ultimate, yeah.
But you cannot edit them. You will not be able to edit those because there's no Prometheus service object that is over on the the integrations tab or whatever, just because we just need to edit.
Sorry. I remember opening a bug about this. So when you add a project level cluster, and you install Prometheus, it creates a Prometheus service object on the backend. But if you use a group cluster or an instance cluster, it does not create that service. So
Yeah, that's where I got that information, Ruben. Good job on that. Kirsty and I were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. So that add button on the UI checks for that service object, which is why the button does not appear for group and instance.
Okay, do you think we should link this bug into this issue, Ruben?
Yeah, that'll probably be good. I'll find it and I'll link it.
Okay, cool. Well, it's just a simple fix of the name of the YAML file and remove the underscore new. Okay, so this is interesting. Apparently, so metrics in MR not display in the not show up correctly. This is what the issue mentioned, and the thing that I found very interesting is the fact that Josh thought that solving this issue will fix the problem. And you can see that like 7 months afterward, there was another user that complained about this issue as well. So we need to look into that and better understand why this issue was not fixed. And we have 2 users that complain about that. So here, another one about auto deploy. Prometheus can only use one project. And there is also like 2 issues that I think are the same. So this is one, when you install Prometheus on Kubernetes, it ends up in this namespace and the integration is automatically enabled, but other projects can no longer install Prometheus.
But not if they, I mean, if it's at a group level or a project level, they can use it. And the namespace, the application namespace is like group dash or project name dash ID dash, you know, production or staging or whatever for the different environments. So the namespaces for the applications are unique, but it's certainly a case with instance level and group level Kubernetes installed Prometheus that the multiple applications can take advantage of the same Prometheus.
So they can use it, or
they can, except if they want custom metrics, because that's not working right now. If they want to edit them, that was what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
I will maintain that they can add custom metrics. They just can't edit them unless they want to go. Unless they want to go mess around in the database.
But I don't think they can delete them either. So it's like a one-shot attempt. It needs fixed, but it is possible, right?
This issue doesn't seem to mention whether the customer tried it with project cluster or.
No, he said it. He said up at the top it added it to the cluster or the project. Added Kubernetes cluster for project 1. So he added it to a project. So
project cluster.
And the same one to the project 2.
You kind of need to think ahead and do and put them all in a group or whatever. Several times I've wanted to be able to, I've got this other project. Can I tell this project to slurp up all the Kubernetes information that I've got over in some other project? I always make my Kubernetes clusters at the instance level, which may not be available for many customers. So it would be nice to be able to copy cluster from another project.
So we can so like even if they started at the project level and then they decide, oh, you know what, this needs to be at the group or the instance level, they can't remove the integration from the settings and then take that same cluster and put it somewhere else, right?
And it's an advanced topic to get rid of the Helm tiller and stuff that's inside that's deployed inside the Kubernetes. You have to have some serious Kubernetes knowledge. I would love to have a copy cluster, feature to copy a cluster from project 1 to project 2, like customer here is wanting to do. That would be really awesome. But that would mean that when, like if I install Prometheus on project 1, the project 2 would need to magically show up for project 2 as well. You know, I
Would it
haven't
be
gone.
easier to like promote it from like a project level to group level or something if somebody decided, hey, you know what, I'm not sure what's easier from an implementation standpoint.
I don't think so, but I don't know if it would be possible to copy it from a project from one project to the other. I guess if I would just spend an hour and do some database magic, maybe I could see if I can just copy them over and see if it works, just copying it over. But there would have to be some kind of synchronization that where each of these projects knows that the other project, you know, has done something to the cluster, like delete Prometheus or add ingress or something. But we force people to think way ahead, and we make it painful for them to change their mind later because all their cluster has to go away, and they have to add a new create a new cluster for the most part. This is righteous.
So maybe that's what comes out of this then, is we just start investigating that kind of, just easing that pain point. If we started in the project level and decide, you know what, we want to use this cluster now for multiple projects. So
yeah, what should we do? I mean, how will we enable this for our users?
Well, I think probably at this point we're at like the feature exploration level. Like, how do we ease this pain point? For this specific issue though, I think the answer that we currently have is to set up Prometheus at the group level or at the instance level if they want to use it for multiple projects. But as David was saying, you know, if we want to ease this user experience, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we do support using auto-deployed Prometheus for more than one project. It's just, there's some pain points involved if you already started locked into one project, getting that, you know, to use other places. So we could do some exploration, like, hey, can we make this easier for our users, because this is happening where they change their mind midstream. But actually, I'm not even sure that this particular user knows that, hey, we do support this. You're just going to have to set it up at a group level.
This was opened 1 year ago as well. It may have predated the instance level clusters.
Well, there we go. Yeah. So for this issue, we could probably just comment on that, spawn a new issue off of this to explore, making it easier, and then kind of schedule that issue whenever we want. But it would take some, as David was saying, it sounds like it'll take some exploration as to what the best way to do that is, and, you know, probably just do a spike issue on this for now until we have a good
exploration idea. On how to make sure Kubernetes.
Yeah, on how to make the experience easier. Yeah.
Move from one project to another. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, and the other one is the same. I mean, it's auto-detective Prometheus has already been deployed to, I think it's the same, to a cluster. And Josh described the same problem. You connect a single cluster to multiple projects. Unfortunately, you cannot install Prometheus multiple times. Is it still right?
Right, but we don't need to deploy Prometheus multiple times, because if if the things that you deploy to the cluster are annotated correctly, all of the metrics for your deployed apps will show up in Prometheus. I'm 100% sure about that as well.
Okay. So I'll create a spike issue out of this one, and can we verify that this is no longer relevant, or that our solution is different than installing multiple times? I mean, do we think that our customers would like to install Prometheus multiple times in multiple projects? Is it something that we want to allow them to do?
I think this may also, is this about like, if a cluster already has Prometheus, we should simply auto-detect its presence and enable the service? Is this talking about like the integration settings, like seeing that this is enabled, that Prometheus is enabled when we have? I'm actually not sure what this is saying. I don't know that it's the same thing though. I think this is more about like we know that we have a Kubernetes cluster installed, but we should be able to auto detect the presence of I guess this would be the pre-existing presence of Prometheus in that cluster. So this would be more for like a custom managed Prometheus maybe.
Well, I can see that.
Somebody adds their Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah.
I could see that being a valid thing for detecting a GitLab managed Kubernetes, but detecting a GitLab managed Prometheus, but detecting a customer's Prometheus, I don't know if that would be.
I think a GitLab managed one, if I remember, I read through the issue a long time ago. If I remember correctly, I think it's for the GitLab managed one to be able to detect it if you already have one and you just connect GitLab into it.
And this is very similar to what we just talked about being able to share clusters between, use a cluster that's already been associated with another project.
Yeah, this seems like a similar or one potential approach is that we always set it up the same way maybe, and then as you add the cluster to multiple projects, it could auto detect that, hey, this was already. I'm not sure if that's a viable approach, but
it stores a bunch of keys and certificates and doobly-doo in the database. I'm not sure exactly what all they are, but they look encrypted and important. But I think that those things can be just copied between, different projects if we wanted to use them, as assuming that the permission is correct between the two projects have similar permissions. But it gets to be complicated if if one user has access to a subset of projects that is intersected by the set of projects that another user would have access to, but they kind of intersect on one or two projects, and that means that I could deploy apps. Well, I don't know. It would mean that, and I'm not sure about it, but if there's an intersection of the projects that we can have access to, and I add one to the intersected project and to a not intersected project, then the person that would have, if they took over my project, anyway, I think we just have to think about the permissions associated with it.
So the use case for this is a little bit unclear, is what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
I think the use case is is compelling of being able to.
It is, okay.
But I think the permissions associated with accessing the cluster, if we just need to make sure that we cover all our bases with. We don't need to allow indirect access to someone else's project through a cluster that they share.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The implementation details have some, have some to figure those out. But
the deployed applications of both the projects will have to be isolated correctly, I guess. So that, one project cannot interact with a deployed application of another project. Something like that.
So I think this is a separate feature ask with a different use case, it seems, if I'm hearing it right. And then this may actually just still also be in the evaluation stage where we start looking into like what are the implications for this and how do we actually make that happen. The solution, I don't know, depending on how we do it or how we set it up, addressing one might actually allow us to kind of better be prepared to address the other one. So they are related, but they're not exactly the same.
So I'll create a spike issue from this one and set it up to maybe this iteration or next one. And this one is something that we need to also create some sort of a spike issue, but see if while we are working on this one, maybe we can ease the way we are thinking about that one. And I'll have a chat with Josh to better understand the use case here. Didn't have time to talk to him about that. Okay. This is a bug on when you set a condition alert to the dashboard, you cannot see it anymore. which mean, I mean, after you set it, you cannot see it anymore, which means that you cannot edit it or delete it. So one shot, basically. Yeah. Support for column chart, stack column chart. Okay, this was also something weird which was reported. I think it's also related to the way the inconsistent approach we have from the calls, from the backend to the front end. So the user reported some sort of a CI job that ignored the metrics with tags. And then they said afterward, it was able to detect it. And as you read through the issue, it seems that we still have some, it kind of related to the inconsistency that we have, that we discussed earlier. So maybe those two issues are related, maybe not, but we need to investigate this one as well.
It sounds like this might be applesauce and jellyfish. Is it? I mean, are there tags? What's that? Is this? You're looking at GitLab CI or GitLab CI.yml, right? Okay, artifacts, metrics.tags.
Yeah.
I don't know that the tags thing is related to this.
Yeah,
it
it's not
seems more
related.
like, yeah, I think the original description needs updated. I think the real issue, because he said it does work after like a minute.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the responses we're getting from the API and how the front end is interpreting that.
Exactly.
So many of the backend APIs use caching. So the thing is, an API that uses caching, when it gets in a request, it checks whether this particular request, the result of this particular request has already been cached. If it's not cached, it returns 204 or 202. Old APIs return 204. I think the newer ones will return 202. So the front end is supposed to retry until you get a 200 response. Now here, sorry. Now here there's another problem that returning 204 causes the browser to cache the response. So it's one of the reasons that we started switching to 202 instead.
Yeah, so the front end is, I don't know. I mean, we need to look into make sure the front end is actually retrying in the first place. But even if the front end is retrying, it's a potential significant problem, because the browser is just going to say, oh, I know the response to this. This is cached. And just, you're going to sit there retrying until it decides that cache is over. And then, you know.
Yeah.
So it may need two pieces. I mean, I think the front end definitely needs to double check that we're actually retrying anyway. I didn't realize. So you're saying, Ruben, that 204 is a front end, like we need to be retrying on 204s and 202s everywhere within our code base, essentially.
So it depends on the API. I mean, it's not like the API will sometimes return 204 and sometimes 202. The API will either return 204 or
Right.
202, not both.
But 204, in most cases, just means that it's one of our legacy APIs, and we should be retrying on 204s.
Yeah.
Whereas then there's, as far as you know, I know I'm testing the limits of the code base is huge, but as far as you know, we never use 204 to mean no data and you're good. Just stop. There's nothing here.
Yeah, I've never encountered such an API.
Okay. That's helpful to know, because from a front-end implementation standpoint, I really don't think that we're doing that. So we need to change the way we're.
Yeah, there are a couple of places where we get 202 and we don't retry again. So I think we'll have to reevaluate quite a lot of these requests.
I'll check this API specifically and just to make sure that our assumptions are correct, and I'll comment on the issue.
Do we need to create another issue regarding those inconsistent behavior through the API with the 204 and 202? I mean, do you think it makes sense to maybe close this one, or not close and create another one that will reflect the actual problem?
it may be an epic worth creating, and then we can gather these little issues where we're actually doing it. I think it's helpful to have them broken down into their specific places, like where we're doing it and where we're not. So maybe, yeah, maybe an epic for addressing this, making sure we're retrying on 204s and on 202s, and then add this one to that epic. And then as we find them, we can just keep adding them to that epic.
Okay.
I don't know. That's my opinion. I just think it's helpful to keep them broken down as far as, if we find a specific instance where we need to do it, to keep that as its own.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should work more with epics. Edward, can you help me create this epic, or can
Certainly.
you create this epic and tag me, and we
Yeah.
can add issues to that epic?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and apparently there is one metric from Prometheus that is behind featureflag.com. And I think it, from the discussion, nobody understand why, or nobody responded why. So I think we need to remove the feature flag. Yeah, this was an ask from Miguel to bump the version of Prometheus we shipped with Gitlab.
I think actually that previous one is already being taken care of by
This one?
this one, or no, I'm sorry, the one after this, the bump Prometheus version. I think this is already being handled in Porter commented on this, I think, if you scroll down, but this may already be addressed in a separate issue. Up just a little more. Yeah, there it is. So he's already working on those two issues, which should address this. So I don't know that we need to necessarily take action on this, because those two should solve this.
There may be a movement afoot to upgrade to support the latest version of Kubernetes. I think our Helm chart version that we have pinned is not working, so I don't know if this will be swept up in that whole
It will.
Kubernetes
Yeah, that's the idea.
1.16.
Yeah, is that they're going to unpin the version essentially, and then it should just stay up to date a little better.
Okay. So is this issue closed? It's not closed, right?
It's not. It's still in flight, but I just don't think we'll actually have to tackle it. I think their group will end up fixing this for us.
That's good. Okay. This was, I think it's another bug on how to reflect our customers with an error. It says here that he's waiting and waiting for performance data. Basically nothing happens. So we need better change maybe the text here, say no data found or something like that.
I think there is a error state, but maybe you can see a JS error in the image. So maybe that is preventing the error state from displaying.
I think the failed XHR is being caught properly, but the UI is not updated over there. We do have a retry of, I think, 3 times, and if it fails all the 3 times, then you should see the error state. But it looks like there's a bug. We should look at it.
Okay. Go away. Yeah, some metrics charts do not load properly. Did you see the video? Yeah, it's with the video. Only when he resized them, they will load properly.
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah, I looked into this one as well. So it is because the collapsible panels, when they're closed, it's not rendered on the screen, because of which the charts assume that the width is 0. So it's a pretty straightforward fix.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, this one, Diraj, you had a comment on that. So basically, when there is no data on the chart, you have this arrow, you click on it, it doesn't do anything. So Diraj, your comment is that let's simply remove all the headers with no data. So we repopulate. So only when the data is in, we can show this one. My comment here is we need to make sure that history is also relevant. So if there is no data right now, but if there is a data like a week ago, yes, a couple of days ago, we need to make sure that this header is displayed, although there is no data in the chart.
We used to also do it that way where we just wouldn't show it. The reason we changed was because we're allowing custom dashboards. So if a user goes in and adds like some custom metrics for, you know, Nginx Ingress or something, and then there's no data, it would be an odd user experience, or they may think something's wrong because they're creating a group and then nothing's showing up and there's just no feedback at all as to why nothing's showing up there. I think what we agreed we were going to do was, in these cases, we would start with them collapsed, and then when you click it, if there really is nothing configured, we would just have an empty state that would link them to, okay, you need to configure Nginx Ingress in order to see stuff here. Or you need to configure, you know, whatever it is. So we can open that discussion again as to what the best user experience is, but I think initially we had agreed that we would just have group level empty states in this particular case.
Yeah, it makes sense if you the way you laid out. Regardless, I think we need to have like a broader discussion on how we tackle dashboard and visualization, and it deserves an epic by itself. Something that we will probably take on in the next iteration. But for now, I think at least let's fix this one with the arrow, and let's not remove the headers if this is the approach. Maybe we can discuss this on the issue.
Yeah, because I feel like maybe at least a one-line message in that collapsible section saying that you're seeing an empty section over there because there's nothing configured would be helpful. Then removing the arrow altogether and you're just seeing a gray section now that's not clickable, doesn't open, doesn't have an arrow. But anyways, as you said, maybe
we will take a discussion there. I think, you know, the approach is to have some sort of a message. I think makes sense. I can update after this call. Last one. This is a simple documentation fix. It started as a major issue for an infrastructure team for the dog fooding. This is why it went in, and apparently there is a minor documentation fix that we need to do. Yeah, I think this is it for 12.5. Yeah, back to you.
All right. No, that's good. As you were explaining them all, I took some notes. So I was going to put them in the document, but I think it'll be better to go update each issue.
Put them in the issues. Tag me if needed. I can also,
all right,
provide some more color if needed.
Yeah, definitely. A few of these we had some good discussion on. So I tried to take some notes. So I'll try to update the issues today if I can. And then I know some other people mentioned they would add some context too. So the more details we can put in each of these issues, the better.
Yeah. Just one comment. I may add additional issue, a design issue, today or tomorrow, and I'll update the team.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
Dovu, the next thing on the agenda, you already talked about a little bit at the beginning about the label, the to schedule label.
Yeah. So first, thanks for labeling those issues. It really helped to better prioritize where to put them. I think that we should take also Adriel's suggestion about weights on the issues. And I don't think it needs to be like tedious work. We need to put weights, at least for me, okay? At least for me, if you will be able to put weights when we are moving, sliding issues from one iteration to another, it will be very, very helpful. So not on all issues. If you want all issues, I don't mind. But at least on the one that are to schedule, let's make sure to put a weight. Edward, I think he said it's like 0 to 5, right? This is like the scale.
Maybe all the way to 10, I'm not sure. We had talked about maybe not. I think Kenny was a little concerned that we have like this sliding weight scale that goes down, but I don't know. I mean, we can use weights, however, we're not using them at all right now. So maybe even if weights just represent whatever the current milestone is, and then it's okay to change it, you know, if it does have to get scheduled to the next one, then we know. I mean, it is weird, right? It's like an issue weighted 10 or 12 or something. I don't know, something crazy. If it extends over, then yeah, I don't know. But
I think I'll tell you what will help me. So when I say the to schedule now, I can look to the issue and say, okay, someone worked on that issue, or someone maybe didn't work on that issue. And if I say that nobody worked on that issue, there is no comments, nothing, and I think maybe this one is not as important for this milestone, I may push it to the next one or maybe to the backlog. That's fine. But then there are some issues where people are actually putting some effort and say, okay, yes, how much time do you have left until it will be in review? And someone may comment like 1 day, 1 week. And it's nice, but it doesn't give me the perspective of how much effort he put into that. Maybe he has like 1 week, he worked already on that for a week, and like 50% of the work is done. Maybe we'll say 1 day, but he didn't work on that even. So put in weights, and if we can like say internally 0 to 10, 10 is let's say 10 is you didn't put any effort to that. 5, 50% of the work is already done. 3, 2, 1, and this way I'll have better like control on how to slide things. And if I see something with the weight of 1 and 2, it's okay. It doesn't have a lot of effort left, so I can schedule it to the next iteration.
Right. So 10 being like this will take an entire milestone type of effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like milestone. I think 10 is to run it to complete. 0 to 10 to run it to complete. And then maybe you're right.
I see. You're talking about it. Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of completion, how done is it? How ready is it?
Yeah. And I mean, we're trying. We're trying. And
might as well. We're not using them now. So yeah, use them for something.
Yeah. To schedule really helped me in like
it's helpful. Well, that's the whole point of the weights. Yeah. Okay.
The weights will help me more, and if we need to tune it more, we'll do more work.
Okay.
Right. So I kind of wrote it down. So if we're saying like a weight of 10 or 10 means the whole thing needs to still be, it hasn't really been started yet.
Nobody did any work.
And then a 1 would be, it's mostly done. There might be like 1 is like, if we just use percentages, so 1 is like 10% left or
10%,
something.
yeah.
And 10 is 100%. Still needs to be
done. We're kind of custom making weights into our own image, which is fine, but that's not a problem. Let's try it out. I mean, if it helps scheduling, like I said, we're not using them now, so let's do it.
Yeah, and we don't need to put all of them. If something is complete and done, it's done. Only when, if it's something like, I don't want to overload, with more tasks. So if it's like when we're sliding one from one iteration to another, then make sure there will be a weight there. Okay. Otherwise, whatever you want.
Great. Okay. Is that something, if we're going to start using it, that we should be documenting in the handbook somewhere?
Yeah, probably. Especially because we need to have somewhere to point if a community member is like, what? This issue is not, a 5 weight. Well, we use them. This is how we use them.
This is how we use it.
Which is, I don't know. Well, we may get pushback on that, but let's start. Let's just try it, and we'll adapt as we go. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. And then Ruben, you mentioned we kind of talked about the 202 and 204. Is this an issue that we talked about? Oh, okay.
So this is an issue discussing the benefits of switching to 202. Otherwise, I think we discussed while we were going through the issues, we discussed how 202s and 204s are used.
Right. Okay. So this has a little context behind it. Okay. And this,
Yeah. So this has been a problem multiple times in the past week, I think. So we need some developer documentation on how we do caching. So I've opened an issue for it. I'll start with the documentation and get some feedback from the documentation team.
okay. Okay. Great. Are there other topics people have? We're almost out of time, or are we out of time? So, okay. Then thank you, everyone. I think going through all these issues was helpful. I don't know if everyone else agrees. I see a lot of head nods, so that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll plan on doing this once a milestone at least, and maybe kind of going through towards the maybe every couple of weeks we can kind of alternate, like go through the whole board again and here's what's left kind of thing. So we kind of did that last week as well during our weekly meeting. So I think that's helpful.
I think we should like walk the board in every meeting we have for the rest of the time. But for that kickoff one, we need to make sure we will cover the entire issues for the list. And yeah, okay, that's
Great.
That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks everyone. And have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.